We are going to Venus to build our own floating cities up in the atmospheres of Venus. But we are still depending on Earth to send us some resources. Unfortunately though, Earth have stopped responding at our calls, so we only have the supplies left that are still on the way. And now we have to compete for those supplies. This game is a 2 to 6 player game depending on which game you will back on Kickstarter, because this is a Kickstarter game. And what I have here is a prototype from this video until you get it on the table in front of yourself. But I am going to show you how to set up this game and how to play the game. So let's just have a look at this. At the start of the setup, we start by placing this beautiful neon mat in the middle of the table. We also place the 3 resources and the V-knot next to the table. These are the general supplies. Each player gets a floating city. This will be your player board. You also get 1 miner here and a die, along with an international innovation station called IIS mini board. This is placed to the right of your player board. Now each player gets to place out some V-nauts on their player board. We place 4 in the food department, 4 in the air department, and 4 in the shields department. But we also need to place 1 in power and 1 in the mechanical department. The IIS mini board and the mining department should be left empty. Now we need to set up the cloud drop cards, looking like this. They have a canister on the back and a number in the bottom right. We should separate these into 3 different piles, but also remove the Earth card from pile number 3 and set this aside for now. Depending on how many players you are, there should be a different amount of cards in each deck. If we are 2 players, there should be 12 in each deck. A 3-player game needs to have 16 in each deck, and a 4-player game has 20 cards per deck. These will be the different phases of the game. When we have placed the right amount of cards in each deck and shuffled them separately, we need to take the top card from the phase 3 deck and replace it with the Earth card. After adding the Earth card in the phase 3 deck, you need to shuffle it again to randomize its placement. All the cards that we did not use now goes back into the box and is not used during this game. Now we take the 3 different phase decks and make 1 deck out of them, with phase 3 in the bottom, 2 in the middle and 1 at the top. And then we place them on the square closest to Earth. Next we need to take the event cards looking like this. We need to shuffle them real good and place them on their area on the neoprene mat, face down. Next we have the innovation cards looking like this. These are, well, innovations and upgrades that you might be able to do to your floating city. We should separate them into groups of matching cards. Then we should, at random, draw 4 cards from the pile and place them faced up on the neoprene mat, next to each other. When you place out the 4 random innovation cards, we are placing out 3 of each type. So we are on Venus. Or we're not really on Venus, we are floating in the clouds of Venus in our floating city. And we have been doing pretty good, at least until now. Because we have been supplied with these little canisters here from Earth. But something have happened on Earth and all of a sudden the supply line have been cut off. And we can't even communicate with Earth anymore. But there are more canisters on the way. And now, well, we will have to compete for those canisters and make the best living that we possibly can from now on. This game is played by the players taking their turns simultaneously, and when the last round starts, which is shown by the Earth card in phase 3, the player with the most victory point is crowned to be the president of Venus. This game is played out during 6 steps. The first 5 steps, the players take their turns simultaneously. But when we come to the 6th step, we have a player order. But before I show you the actual gameplay, I want to show you the information on the cards and your player boards. So this here is your floating city. And as you can see, there are a bunch of different departments in your city. Here we have power, here we have food, over here we have the mechanical, this is air and water, down here we have shields, mineral storage, the mining department, and lastly down here the holding bay. And as you can see in the left corner on some of these departments, there is a capacity of 6 V-nauts in each of these departments. In all of the departments where there can be V-nauts, there are a max capacity. As you can see, it stands on 6 right now. But we can actually alter this capacity during the game by using either the innovation cards or some of the canister cards. As we can see down here in the left corner, we have a number. And if we look at the top, we can see that this is a mechanical card. Meaning that this card can actually be slid into the mechanical department to alter the capacity, but also give you victory points at the end of the game. Just be aware, because some of the cards will actually lower your value instead of raising it. As we look at the cards, we can see that there are some different symbols on them. These ones here, with the little V-naut down here, they are called population boost cards. They have a pink arrow pointing up at the bottom right of the card. While the city upgrade cards have a department capacity number in the bottom left corner. The colors we have here on the cards represents which phase we are in. Green would be 1, yellow would be phase 2, and red would be phase 3. The symbols here shows which department these cards will have an impact on. So this population boost card here, for example, would populate the air and water department with 8 V-nauts instantly. And to acquire these cards, you also need to pay the cost stated out to the right. At the top, you can see which department you need to pay V-nauts from, and from the bottom you can see how many gems you need to pay. So now we know what our floating city means, but we also know what the cards means, and we are ready to start playing the game. This game is played during 6 different steps, and the first step is the cloud drop. During the first step, we need to deal out some canister cards, faced up on the spots next to the deck. And we should deal out as many cards as there are players in the game, plus 1. Meaning that in this game we are 4 players, so we should deal out 5 cards. So that was step 1. Quite easy, right? Step 2 is to deal with any events that might be showing on the cards that we have just dealt out. Because some of these canister cards have a little yellow triangle on them. And if a triangle is showing, we need to deal with the same amount of events as there are triangles on the cards that we have just dealt out. Limited to the phase you are in. This means that if you in phase 2 gets 3 cards with events on, you would still only resolve 2 events. But if you are in phase 3 and you get 3 cards with the little yellow triangle on, you would have to deal with 3 events. We need to resolve these events one at a time, meaning that we draw 1 event card and then we resolve that event. Once that one is resolved, we draw a new one and then we resolve that event. Most of these events will have you lose V-nauts from your floating city. on the card you can see which department you need to lose V-nauts from. And if you cannot pay the amount stated on the event card, you need to take 2 V-nauts instead from another department on your floating city. You cannot take V-nauts from your IIS station, because this one is a station that is already out in orbit and you can't take from that one. You need to take from your floating city. But some of these event cards actually gives you V-nauts instead, so they're not all just bad. Well, most of them are. Venus is a harsh environment, and every day it rains down acid on our city, meaning that in step number 3 we need to lower our shields by 1. Taking our little V-naught here and returning him to the main supply. If we cannot pay that amount, we again need to take 2 from anywhere else in your city and not on your IIS board. Remember? Step 4 is the grow and deploy step. This is where the players need to look at their food and their air and water department to see which of these 2 they have the least amount of V-nauts in. In this case, the air and water department has less V-nauts than food, so the population grows by 2. And then the players get to place them out anywhere they would like to in their city, if the department can have that amount of V-nauts in that department, because there is a limit, remember, and we cannot go above that limit. But now you also have a chance to deploy V-nauts to your IIS board if you would like to do that instead. In this step, it is important that the players plan ahead, because this will affect your future population growth, but it will also affect certain events in the future that you might need to pay for, but also if you want to buy canister cards and pay for that card as well. So be sure that you take a little bit of time to just plan ahead of where you want to put out your little V-nauts in your city, so you can place some V-nauts on your IIS board, meaning your International Innovation Station. That is a hard word. That's why I just say IIS, it's just more easier. Anyway, you can place 2 of them on your board during step 4. You could place 1 if you don't have 2, but you cannot place more than 2 per deployment, meaning the immigration, the population, and even from some of the cards. When you manage to get 8 V-nauts out on your IIS board, you get to take these little men and return them to the main storage. And then you get to take 1 of the innovation cards that are out on the market to either upgrade your ship or give you a population boost or whatever it says on the card. If 2 players manage to get 8 V-nauts out on their IIS board at the same time, we would go according to player order to see who will get to choose a card first. Now in step number 5, you have 3 different choices to do, and you can do all 3 of them, or 2, 1, or simply do none of them if you feel like it. This is all up to you, but it's also depending on if you even can do that action instead, because the first one I'm going to show you will require that you have 1 of the canister cards in your holding bay. And this can only be acquired in step number 6, meaning that during your first turn, well, you will not have 1 of those cards and be able to equip them into the city. But let's say that you have 1 of those cards. How would you equip them? So if you would like to equip this card that you have in your holding bay, you would need to pay the resources stated out to the right. On the top we can see 3 symbols. These 3 symbols corresponds with the different departments out on your floating city. Meaning that here we should pay 1 V-naut from mechanic, from the food, and from the power department. But we also need to pay 1 extra V-naut from the mechanics. This is done for every card that you would like to get into your floating city from the holding bay. And as we can see down here in the bottom right, we also need to pay 1 gem. Once we have paid the amount needed to equip the card, we now get to put it into our city. As we can see in the top right corner, this is a shield department card, which means that this one is slided into the shield department. The second thing you can choose to do during step number 5 is to get some more V-nauts into your city. This is the purchase immigration step. To do this, you have to pay 4 minerals to be able to take 1 V-naught into your city. And again, mind the capacity of the different departments. You can get 1 V-naught into your city by doing this step per round. Next thing you can choose to do is to send out one of your brave V-nauts here from your mining department to do some mining. Mining on Venus is a dangerous task. And unfortunately, this is a one-way ticket. These little miners here, they sacrifice their life for you to get these pretty little gems. The way you would mine is that you would take one of your V-nauts from your mining department on your floating city and put it into your little miner here. Then we need to roll the die. Now the result you get will determine how many points of gems you will get. Meaning that if you, for example, get 5, you would get a total value of gems of 5. The black ones are worth 1, the pink are worth 4, and the clear ones are worth 8. There are some mining upgrades that you can do. This one here will let you re-roll a die result once, and the player has to take the second outcome. This upgrade here will actually let you roll 2 die instead of 1. And this one here will add extra pips to your die result. Meaning that if you, for example, roll a 3, that result is now worth 5 instead. 3 plus 2 equals 5. And then lastly, we have step number 6. And as I said at the start of the video, this is the only step in this game where we go in player order. The players now get to choose one of the available cards from the canister market. If they can pay the amount of V-nauts or gems needed to equip it into one of the departments in their city, they can do that. But if they cannot pay those resources right now, they can take the card that they want to and put it in their holding bay and equip it later when they have acquired the resources needed. If the players do not want to take one of the available cards from the market, they don't need to. Instead of taking a card, they could just take 1 V-naught from the general supplies instead and put it in one of the available spots on their floating city. Now there are 2 types of cards, as I said at the start of the video. One of the cards is upgrades on your floating city, and the other one is population boosts. If you take a population boost, they do not go into your city. They are placed next to your player area for end of game scoring. And now you simply take the amount of V-nauts stated on the cards and place them into your city. Again, you need to mind the limitations of each department. Every time you cannot place any more V-nauts into your floating city, well then those are lost. The cards out on the board that was not picked during this turn are all discarded and goes down to the last spot on the neon player mat. That was step 1 to 6. And when we reveal the Earth card in phase number 3, we go into the final round. We will do step 1 to 6 again, play it all through, and when we have done that, we go into end of game scoring to see who will become the president of Venus. You need to count the victory points that you have in your city in your different departments, and you need to calculate the victory points that you had on any population cards. For every 2 V-nauts that you have, you will get 1 point. For every 4 mineral points that you have, you will get 1 point. If you are the player with the most city V-nauts, you get 2 bonus points. And if you are the player with the most minerals, you would also get 2 bonus points. Once we have gone around and calculated all of our different victory points and V-nauts and gems and everything, well, we have a new president of Venus. Congratulations! And that, my friend, is how you play Cities of Venus, an easy to learn, beautifully made game. The components here, the mechanics, they all flow really, really nice. It's really easy to learn, it's really easy to get into the game and play it, and there are some cool mechanics here, the way you slide in the cards, the way you get your little V-nauts out on the board. It is just really nicely done. And if you have new players coming to the table, well, they will be playing in no time at all. But even though it is quite easy to learn the game, it is quite hard to master it, because you really need to make sure that you place these little V-nauts in the right department on the board. And absolutely, you need to plan ahead. If you just place them out wherever you feel like it for the time being, well, you will end up in trouble further down the road in this game. You need to have a plan, and that is where the expertise of playing the game several times comes in. Because also these little cards, they won't be the same every time. You will have different cards in the decks, you will have different amount of cards depending on how many you are, and you will have them shuffled in different ways, so you can't be sure that the strategy that you used the last time will actually work this time. These cool and nice little miners here are purchased separately for the 4-player games. And like I said at the start of the video, this is just a prototype, and you can see that here on the board it bends up. It is not 100% complete, but it is still really, really beautiful. These little bots here that I have, those are extra. I had them printed out. Do we need them? No, we don't. But do we want them? Yeah, we do. And you have the little colors, and then we have the colors of the neon mat, but also on the board itself. It just feels really, really pretty and really well made. It is sci-fi, it is the future. You are on Venus, you are in this little floating city here trying to grab the little canisters. The game itself is also quite well streamlined. There are patterns and symbols everywhere on the cards and on the boards that will make it really clear for the players on where they can put their little V-nauts, where they can put the cards, and where they cannot put them. And this little mechanic here where you slip in the cards into your own little space station, that is just such a nice little mechanic. So that was Cities of Venus from Tin Robot Game. A 2 to 6 player game depending on which version you want to back. If you want to know more about the game and the Kickstarter, well, check out the links down in the description and you will find out more. Me personally really like this game. I like the artwork, the gameplay, the way you build up your own little floating city here, the cool little mechanics. I like the whole package of this game, and I think it has a lot going for it. But that was the video for this week, my friend. If you like what I'm doing here, if you like the channel or my videos, well, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, or whatever you like to. But most importantly, please do not forget to keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace out, my friend.